Shrishtam Manamapi Suchiputram Atra Surupam Rupam Tasakraja Muripurim Maturim Koshtuartam Radha Kundam Girivaram Ahoradika Madhuvasam Rapto Yasya Pratita Kripaya Sri Guru Tam Natosmi Gurave Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadale Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tad Bhaktaya Namo Namah Ananda Leelamaya Vigrahaya Hemabhadivyatschavi Sundaraya Tasmai Mahaprema Rasapradaya Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Bhaktya Vihina Aparada Lakshe Jyuktastu Kamaritaram Kamarti Kripa Maitam Shanam Prapanna Brinde Namaste Charanaravindam Brinde Namaste Charanaravindam Govinda Damodaramadavedhi Govinda Damodaramadavedhi Govinda Damodaramadavedhi Govinda Damodaramadavedhi. Everyone. Hey Krishna, Hey Yadava, Hey Saketi, Govinda Damodaramadavedhi. Sham Sundar Shikanda Shekhar Smaha Smurli Manora Radhikarasaka Mama Kripanidhe Supriya Charna King Kurin Kuru Tavaivasmi Na Jivami Tvayavana Tivikaya Devi Tam Naramam Charanantikam. First of all, I offer my Sastang Dandavat Puspanjali, my heart like flowers, thousands and thousands of times, at the lotus feet of my holy master, my supremely worshipable spiritual Gurudev, Asmadiya Paramaradhatama Guru Pada Padma, Nitya Leela Pravishta Om Vishnupad, Ashto Tadasta Sri Urupanugacharya Varya, Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. Secondly, I offer my pranam thousands of times at the lotus feet of my Param Gurudev, to Srila Prabhupada, and to all of our Sri Rupanuga Gaudiya Guru Parampara. And finally, I offer my pranam to all the Samud Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis, Vanchakalpatavasta, Pass in the Vedas. Today, we want to speak a few words on the topics that have been presented by Prabhupada Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakura in his Apurva Katha, unprecedented speech that he gave on the 11th of August 1929 in Albert Hall, Calcutta, to a large audience of scholars and scholarly Vaishnavas and dignitaries on the subject of Gaudiya-Darshana, the vision of the Gaudiyas. Srila Krishna's Karaj Goswami Pad has said, Siddhanta Bulayachite Nakro Alas, Jahoite Krishna Lagi Sudhira Manas. This instruction is to curb the enjoying tendency of the living entities. Because in order to enter into the bheda-abheda-tattva, the process of bhakti, one must first be situated in sambandha gyan, understanding the tattvas, the realization of the tattvas, jiva tattva, maya tattva, bhakti tattva, sadhan bhakti tattva, bhav bhakti tattva, vaidhi bhakti tattva, raganuga bhakti tattva, nam tattva, especially, all these things. So, there's sometimes a tendency, I want to hear very sweet and delicious things which are entertaining for me. And then the discussion of the Siddhantas becomes neglected because one has to make an effort, a great effort to enter into them. So here, Srila Krishna's Karaj Goswami Pad is saying, Siddhanta Baliye, don't say, this is Siddhanta. I'm not interested in this philosophy. Nakaro alas, don't be lazy. Because by making the effort to enter into Siddhanta, then Jahoite Krishna Lagi Sudhira Manas, the mind becomes very steady and fixed at the lotus feet of Sri Krishna. So then one may say, yes, now I understand. I have to enter into Siddhanta. But this is not possible alone. Jaha Bhagavata Pada Vaishnavera Sthane Ekantar Srai Karo Chaitanya Tarani. So Damodar Goswami, he rebuked one Brahmin from Bengal who tried to enter into the mysteries of bhakti by his own scholarship, on the strength of his own merit. He told him, if you want to study, read, recite Srimad Bhagavatam, then go and sit at the feet of a Bhakta Bhagavat, the devotee who is the living embodiment of Srimad Bhagavatam, and hear from them and take full shelter of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Chaitanyara Bhakta Gan Nitya Kara Sangha Tabeto Janibe Siddhanta Samudra Taranga. If you will associate every day or regularly with the Gaudiya-Darshana, those who are very dear to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, then by hearing from them, serving them, receiving their blessings, only then is it possible to enter into the Siddhanta Samudra Taranga, the waves in the ocean of Siddhanta. So then, a person may think, I am associating, I have had some association, and I am studying Shastra, and now I have memorized all the Siddhantas. This is not actually the attainment of Sambandha Gyan. Sambandha Gyan means realization. And even the memory, like a parrot, of the list of so many philosophical concepts. This is not actual understanding. There will still be so many vague areas and confusion will arise. Have you ever experienced in the Vaishnava society some philosophical disagreement? Raise your hand. Did it happen sometimes? All the time, yes. So it happens again and again. So this Katha of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur is especially, it addresses many subjects, but especially the crisis of interpretation. That in every generation, among the Vaishnava community, there's a crisis of interpretation. How do we understand this verse? How do you understand this verse? And so on. So, we should not be surprised. In Bhakti-rasamrita Sindhu, there, Srila Rupa Goswami Pad, he says, Swalpalpa ruchi eva syad bhakti tattva vabodikaha yuktis tu kevala naiva yadasya apratistata. If one has going beyond anartha-nivritti, going through nishta, and ruchi is appearing, then in that stage, bhakti tattva avabodhika, then one can understand bhakti tattva. In the stage of nishta, one will see reflected in one's heart the beautiful swarup of Sri Krishna and his qualities related to his Aishwarya. And when ruchi comes, then the sweetness of Krishna will manifest in the heart along with his associates. And in that stage, now one can understand bhakti tattva. Actually, not before that. So swalpalpa ruchi eva syat. When one enters into the stage of ruchi, then bhakti tattva pabodhika. Then it can be understood. Yuktis tu kevala naiva yadasya apratistata. Bhakti tattva cannot be understood by the kevala yukti. Kevala yukti. That means the dry logic, shushka tarka. By dry logic, one cannot understand. So, in the Govinda Bhasya of Sri Baladev Vidabhushan and also Jiva Goswami's Sarvasambhadini, they quote one important verse, Purva para virodhena konvarto bimato bhavet ityadhyam huanam tarka shushkatakam tu varjayat. Dry reason, that means just your own independent analysis with mature intelligence, shushkatark. This has been forbidden. But that logic, that reason is approved, which produces a meaning which is not contrary to what comes earlier in the scripture and later in the scripture. So if you're reading a verse and then you interpret that verse in such a way that it does not contradict earlier statements and it does not contradict later statements, then this type of reason, it has been approved. So, first a person thinks, yes, by kevala yukti, by shushka tarka, dry logic, I cannot understand the scripture. But by the logic of not just using my own intelligence, but actually reading the scripture and reconciling it with what comes before and what's afterwards, then this logic is acceptable. No, that is also shushka shastra. It's shastra yukti. You're using the shastra. It is not the shushka tark dry logic by itself. You're using shastra yukti, the logic of the scripture, but it's still shushka shastra yukti. It's a dry scriptural logic, because it will not actually be perfect shastra yukti until ruchi has come, until taste has appeared. Understand? This is the mistake many people are making. Somebody says, oh, you're only using some logical arguments. You have to look at the Shastra. I am following the Shastra and what is written before and what is afterwards. So I am correct. No, but even this is not correct. This is the meaning of the original verse of Bhakti-rasamrita Sindhu, Swapalpi ruchi reva syad. Only when ruchi comes, then one can understand Bhakti Tattva. Yuktis tu kevala naiva. Kevala Shastra Yukti is not perfect. It will not bring one to the right conclusion. So you can see in the commentaries, Kevala Yukti actually means, Srila Jiva Goswami says, Ruchi Rohita Shastra Yukti. Ruchi Rohit means without. So Ruchi Rohita Shastra Yukti. the analysis of the scripture, even if you analyze what is before and afterwards, but you have not attained the stage of Ruchi, that is still the Shushka or Kevala Yukti, dry logic. It's still dry. So what is the Shastra Yukti which is appropriate? That is called Ruchi Sahita Shastra Yukti. The Shastra Yukti, the logic of the scripture, which is accompanied with taste, Ruchi, and that implies all the realizations which the devotee has in that stage of Ruchi. Understand? It's very important. So, one cannot enter into the Shastra without the deep Nam Bhajan. Every day, one must sit and become absorbed in the Hare Krishna Mahamantra under the guidance of Sri Guru and pure Vaishnavas. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. With ekagrata chitta, with one pointed attention. When the chitta comes to the state of ekagrata, you know, there are stages. Muddha. Muddha means that your mind is affected by tamagun. Hare Krishna, Hare. Sleepiness is coming, tiredness is coming, muddha. Then there is kshipta, passion, mode of passion. You are chanting, you are alert, but you are alert to everything except for the holy name. Mind is going everywhere. Then there is vikshipta. One is concentrating, but there's occasional flicker. The mind is flickering a little, not so much. And you bring it back quickly. Quite attentive, but not really steady yet. That is vikshipta. But then the next stage is called ekagrata, one-pointedness. So that stage of ekagrata is also the first stage of trance, called sampragyata samadhi or savikalpa samadhi. So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, without this sampragyata samadhi or savikalpa samadhi, one cannot become free from anarthas. We cannot go through the anartha nivritti without spending some time every day hearing the holy name very, very carefully and attentively. So don't let one day go by. You have to make a space, you have to make a time in your day with discipline. You shut the door, you turn the phone, and you sit, no disturbance, and this time is you and Krishna. And you have to do it every day, every day. Money in the bank. Neha Bikramanasosti. If you're not putting money in the bank, then you get worried. But what about your spiritual bank? Spiritual progress. Mahaprabhu, some brahmanas invited Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to their home to take prasad. Mahaprabhu said, no, he eats in the house of a lakpati. So lakpati is like, that would be the phrase for like millionaire. It literally means someone who has 100,000 rupees, which in those days was a lot of money. So then those brahmanas, they became very disheartened. We cannot serve you. You'll not accept us in your home. He said, no, I'll not even accept water from you, unless you're a lakpati. So, but we'll never be so rich. So then Mahaprabhu said, Prabhu bole jano lakshishwara barikari, ye prati jeen lakshanam grahankari. You should know what I mean by the word lakshishwara, millionaire. I mean that person who every day chants 1 lakh of Harinam, 100,000 names of Krishna. I'll eat in his house. Then the brahmanas became very relieved that they didn't have to collect so much money, and they're all Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, chanting so much, so that Mahaprabhu will come and accept their loving seva. So that is money in the bank. That is real progress. That is real profit. Time, is our most valuable asset. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur, he said, a person becomes very worried when they look in their pantry and see they're running out of sweets. But when they're running out of time, the most valuable thing, then they don't give it a second thought. So there has to be an urgency. oh my Lord, be merciful to me, now, today. And crying and praying like this every day, we can make advancement. Even if you're not realizing something, but still, you're also making advancement. Because we don't only have to have faith in Krishna, we have to endear Krishna's faith in us. We have committed so many offenses to the holy name, to the deities, to the holy Dham, to Vaishnavas. Krishna doesn't trust us. Krishna doesn't play around with the nonsense persons. Krishna's games are only the games of pure love. So only those whose love is pure are allowed to enter into his realm. So Krishna is testing everyone to see if they are sincere first. So we have to prove to Krishna that we really want to be his eternal servants. And how can we do that? By serving Gurudev and every day chanting Harinam. Prabhu ko hey Vaishnav Seva, Nama Sankirtan, Dui Kar Shigra Pavi Shri Krishna Charan. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, serve Vaishnavas and chant Harinam every day, and quickly you can attain the lotus feet of Sri Krishna. But by our sadhana, also daily sadhana, we have to attract the attention of Sri Krishna. Then we can have the actual Gaudiya-Darshana. As Prabhupada used to say, don't try to see Krishna, try to have such a seva vritti, a service mood, that Krishna will want to see you. And then when Krishna looks at you, in his merciful glance, there is a Samvit Shakti. And that Samvit Shakti is Krishna's self-disclosing potency by which we can see him. Otherwise, by our own power, it's not possible. So we have to be very sincere, no duplicity at all. Prabhupada Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur, he used to tell one very beautiful history about sincerity. Once there was a very wealthy landholder, and he had arranged some program in his home, a devotional program. He invited one separa. Separa means a snake charmer. But this snake charmer was a nice devotee, and he was going to come with his snakes and do a performance of kirtan. So many people came. A big crowd of people came to the house of that wealthy person. They were all standing there, and the snake charmer came with his snakes, and then he began to sing his kirtan. Everyone was charmed by his kirtan, and he was singing the song of Krishna's. Gaudiya-Damana Vidana. Oh Krishna, how you have danced so beautifully on the head of Kali. It's a very romantic pastime, because Gaudiya-Daman Leela is Purvarag Leela. Gopis and Krishna just coming to the end of their childhood. So as childhood is ending, then the very first awakenings of the powerful Madhurya Ras begin to appear. Just to usher in the Kishore age, the Nitya Kishori age. So when Krishna danced on the head of Kaliya, that was the day that the Purvarag, the intense attachment of Braj Gopis in Madhurya Rasa, took hold of their hearts. After seeing Krishna's dance on the head of Kaliya, afterwards when their parents or the Brajbasis there said, come on, we have to go home, they didn't know which way to go even. Their hearts had been completely stolen. Their in-laws had said, come on, what you became like zombies, come on. Krishna saw the state of Braja Gopis, and from that day, he began to play his flute in the forest every day. As a remedy to soothe the madness of love, which had awakened on that day he danced on the head of Kaliya. So this pastime, in Kaliya Daha, is very, very, very tender and moving Leela. So that snake charmer, he was singing this beautiful kirtan, and everyone was charmed. And Srila Haridas Thakur was there. And he was so charmed that he just, hearing it, he had the spurti of the Leela, and he fell to the ground. Then the next moment, he was shaking and tears were flowing from his eyes. And he stood up and he began to dance. And his dancing was so graceful, so beautiful, that snake charmer from the middle of the stage area, the floor where the performance was going on, he stepped to one side with folded hands. And folded in his hands, he continued to sing. But very respectfully, he gave the center stage to Srila Haridas Thakur, who in a trance of Premavesh, he was dancing so beautifully. And everyone was so moved to see that dancing. It was so expressive of his love. His hairs were standing on end, tears were flowing from his eyes. He was trembling, and again he fainted. All the people came around him, and they began to chant, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And Srila Haridas Thakur, he opened his eyes, and then he just sat on one side, and he was still weeping. And all the crowds of people, seeing his love, they came to him, and they were bowing down, and they were taking the dust from his lotus feet and putting it on their heads. And then that snake charmer, he came back into the middle of the performance area and continued to sing. So, in that audience, there was one Brahmin from a very high caste Brahmin family. He had a very high level of material education. But he was thinking, look at all these foolish people. This Haridas Thakur, he's an outcast. He's from outside of Varnashram Dharma. He's a Muslim. Yet, everyone is respecting him more than they respect me. Just because he's crying and rolling on the ground. If I roll on the ground and cry, then how much more respect they should give to me, because I'm from a very high caste. So he was very proud. He was very crooked. He had some enmity. He wanted to be honored as much as another Vaishnava who was... Srila Haridas Thakur is not seeking the respect of others. He just could not contain his joy. So then, that Brahmin, he came forward and fell on the ground in front of the snake charmer. So then the snake charmer, he took his bamboo stick and started whacking him. And then that Brahmin quickly came out of his trance. And he was saying, oh, Bapre, Bapre, oh my God, oh my God. And he got up and ran away. So then he went away, and the snake charmer continued with his singing. So then, when the performance was over, the people approached that snake charmer, and they said, we don't understand. When Srila Haridas Thakur fainted and then he began to dance, you stood on one side with folded hands. But then when this high-class Brahmin, he did the same thing, you beat him with a stick. Why? So now there's a secret in this pastime. Many people may have heard it, but there's some secret in this pastime. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur explained that this snake charmer, his power over the snakes, and he was there, and also his beautiful kirtan was because Vasuki, you know Vasuki, the king of snakes? The king of snakes. That snake charmer used to say a mantra, and Vasuki used to enter into him. So that snake charmer, he had Vasuki Avesh. Vasuki had entered into him, and Vasuki, what's Vasuki's favorite kirtan? The Kaliyadaman Lila, right? Naturally, right? So Vasuki is actually Vaishnav Nag. You know, he was wrapped around the Mandara mountain during the pastimes of Kurmadev. So Vasuki is a Vaishnav Nag. He's a Vaishnav snake, and his favorite everyone has their Priyanam. Evam Brataswa Priyanam Akirta. Everyone has their favorite names, like Radharaman and so on. So His favorite name is Kalyadaman. His favorite Leela is Kalyadaman Leela. So that snake charmer, he was an ordinary person, and the Vaishnav Nag, Vasuki, had entered into him and was inspiring him to sing. And so the kirtan was very beautiful. Then, Srila Haridas Thakur was so absorbed in thoughts of Krishna. You know, sometimes when a devotee is absorbed in thoughts of Krishna, then they sometimes act like they are Krishna themselves. Like Prahlad Maharaj, he said Prahlad Maharaj would sometimes act out the pastimes of Krishna because he was just in such avesh. So that snake charmer, he told that the people there, when Vasuki was singing, at that time, Haridas Thakur came in Krishna vesh, and Krishna had entered into him and was making him dance. And this is why his dancing was so beautiful and so charming, that even any Brahmins of this world, only seeing the dancing of Srila Haridas Thakur in Krishna Prem Avesh, they'll become purified. No, they'll become liberated even from this world, only seeing the dancing of Srila Haridas Thakur, because he's in Krishna Prem Avesh. So in this way, the Separa, he explained why he stood to one side, because he could understand what was happening. The general people, they could not see the divine dimensions of what was taking place in that room at that moment. So then he said, and then that Brahmin who came, he was full of matsarya, he was full of envy. He was also chanting, trying to chant Krishna, Krishna, and crying and rolling. But all of his so-called devotion, it was imitation, because his motivation was for himself. He wanted respect. He did not have the Avimishra Bhav, a completely unmixed mood, a pure seva-vritti, only to please Krishna in complete forgetfulness of his own self. And so because of this, he was just making offense. So to stop him from making more offenses, I beat him with a stick. Or rather, it wasn't me, it was Vasuki. It was actually Vasuki who was upset with him, the Vaishnav Nag, and empowered that snake charmer to beat him with the stick and drive him away. So this is the internal meaning of this story. So all chanting of Hare Krishna is not the same. Many persons are chanting Hare Krishna, but there's a spectrum from very offensive and gross up to gradual. Some Nam Abbas is coming, then continual Nam Abbas, and then Shuddha Nam, the pure name. So we want to be there. We want to come from the platform of chanting while being firmly anchored in the darkness of the gross and subtle bodies, to being Sarvatma Snapanam, completely immersed and bathed in the light of Shuddha Nam. So, this Nam gives darshan. All the angas of bhakti give darshan. And this is the siddhanta that the Kanishta Adhikaris cannot understand. What do Kanishta Adhikaris understand? Archayam eva haraye, pujam yasadayate, natad bhakteshu chanyeshu, sa bhakta prakrita smitaha. Krishna said, the prakrita bhakta, the materialistic devotee, and that is from Adosvata, Bhajana Kriya, Anartha Nivriti, like this, and going towards Nishta. Devotees in those stages, they're prakrita. They understand archan, understand how to serve the deity. They understand they should worship their guru, but they don't actually understand bhakti tattva. So their hearing, their chanting and remembering is actually subsumed within the category of archan. It's part of their service to the deity. But actual Sravan means darshan. Kirtan means darshan. Smaranam means darshan. Why? Because bhakti is the vritti of Samvit and Hladini. And Samvit Shakti gives realization. So when bhakti comes, realization is there. And one may say, oh, that's in the stage of bhav. No. Yes, fully in the stage of bhav, but from the stage of nishta, the reflection of Samvit and Ladini comes in the heart. So there is the abhas, not direct vision of Krishna, but the abhas of the vision of Krishna in the chitta. So because the purified chitta is called the Bhagavad Bimba Grahitvam, it has the power to catch the reflection of Sri Krishna's Swarup. So this is why ekagrata, the steadiness of the chitta, is necessary, because in the ekagrata chitta, the steady chitta, there is the possibility to have the abhas of Sri Krishna's darshan, of his form, and then qualities, associates, your own form, service, and then finally lila will come. So bhakti is always darshan from the beginning. So Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta Thakura, he quotes the verse of Sri the Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhakti parishanu bhavo viraktir anyatra traika trika ekakala prapadyamanasya yatasatasyus tusti pustishud apayonugasam. This verse is very famous. Just as when a person eats, then as they're eating, three things take place at once. Tushti. They feel some satisfaction, some joy. That means they taste the food. In bhakti, in reference to bhakti, it means there is a chitta ullas, there's an expansion, an ullas, and a prakash, illumination of the chitta takes place. So here tushti, the nourishment, is compared to the joy of the expansion of the chitta that takes place. Then tushti pushti, when you eat you get nourishment, that means you become stronger. So one's devotional spirit becomes nourished and becomes stronger because of bhakti parishanubhav. What does parishanubhav mean? Para, Isha, Anubhav. Para means supreme. Isha means Lord. Anubhav means direct experience, realization. So, bhakti parushanubhava virakti. Virakti means detachment from the world. Because when you feel the joy of bhakti and the realization of the beauty of Krishna, naturally, rasvarajam rasopyasya param dristva nivartate. On seeing the higher reality, then one becomes disgusted and detached from the lower experience, material experience. So, anyatra traika, in anyatra chaisa trika eka kala. This verse says, these three things happen at the same time. Not that I'll hear now and chant now, and then I'll realize later. No, at the time one is hearing, at the time one is chanting, at the time one is remembering, these things happen at the same time. And that is pure bhakti. If that experience is not coming there, then one should think, I have not entered yet into the realm of pure bhakti. This is why you can see there are 64 angas of bhakti. Beginning, Guru Pada Shrai, Diksha, Guru Sevan, Sadama Pratishiksha Sadumaganukaman, taking shelter of Guru, receiving initiation, making inquiries about Saddharma, the eternal religion, receiving instructions, following in the footsteps of the previous acharyas, like this. The first 20 angas of bhakti, after them Rupa Goswami said, Praveshaya Dwara. This is actually the door to enter into bhakti. These are all the things that we have to do so that we can come off the prakrit level, the kanishta level, the level of prakrita bhakta, and enter into the actual experience of the swarup, the true nature of bhakti, which gives bhakti parishanubhava virakti. Joy, realization, and detachment simultaneously. So, Srila Prabhupada's translation of this verse is quite fascinating. Achame vaharaye. He said, the characteristic of the Prakrit Bhakta is that he does not make a serious study of Shastra to come to understand what the actual standard of bhakti is. Now, none of those words are actually in the verse. But Srila Prabhupada inserts them there, because that's what Krishna means when he's saying. When Krishna is saying this verse, that's what he means. So Srila Prabhupada is giving more like, a translation is called a anuvad. But this is a bhavanuvad. That means not only a translation, but also it's revealing the spirit. of what Krishna is expressing as well. So there are symptoms. There are symptoms of persons who have actually entered into bhakti, and those who have entered into bhakti, they can recognize others who have entered into bhakti, and also recognize others who have not entered into bhakti. That's why there's one astonishing story. Srila Prabhupada, he did the Brajmanda Parikrama with a big group of Gaudiya Math devotees. In the month of Kartik, they went all over Braj for 1 month, and they met with many sadhus and Siddha Babas in different places, Govardhan, Vrindavan, Radhakund. And then at the end of the Parikrama, Srila Prabhupada, he said, "Oh, I am so unfortunate. I did not have the chance to meet one Vaishnava." And then some devotees who were very close to him, they inquired, "But we met this Siddha Baba and this Siddha Baba." Srila Prabhupada said, "All Kanishta Adhikars." The common people cannot understand. This is why Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has prayed, "Shokole samahan korite shakoti deho nato jato jato tabito kaibo varinama suke apurada habehata." O Gurudev, in the first verse, Kripa Bindu Diya, by your mercy, make me more humble than a blade of grass. So we discussed what that means yesterday in the Drisha Vichar discussion. Make me more humble than a blade of grass. But then in the second verse, O Gurudev, give me the power to respect everyone according to their level of adhikar. So we cannot give the same respect to Kanishta that we give to Madhyam and to Madhyam that we give to Uttam. So when one advances and anarthas are cleared, then the devotee can understand something of who is on the Prakrita level and who has entered into the true experience of bhakti. Who is a Mahabhagavat, Uttam Bhagavat, is still difficult. They are recognized, but how high they are, still they cannot see in that stage. That requires mercy. The Mahabhagavat has to, by his mercy, reveal himself to someone. But at least they can discriminate between those who have entered into the experience of bhakti and those who are still on the Prakrit level in their practice. So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, "Gurudev, when you give me this power of discrimination so that I can honor everyone accordingly, then I'll become free from aparad, because it's an offense to honor a Kanishta as if he's Madhyam or Uttam, or to honor a Uttam or Madhyam as if he's Kanishta. It's offense." So he said, "Tabito gibo harinama suke aparada habehata." And then serving and honoring the Vaishnavas according to their stage, I'll become free from all offenses and chant the holy name with a great joy. And realization will come. So this is very very important topic. So in this very beautiful book, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur is explaining something, a term which is, it seemed as if it had almost vanished from the world. So this is why we have translated the book and trying to promote this kata of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur, that it will become very popular and commonly, perhaps not fully understood, but at least known. When Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur gave the definition of the Gaudiya Math, he said, "In a world which is filled with the Agya Ruddhi Vritti of sound, the Gaudiya Math is the sacred place of the descent of the Vidvad Ruddhi of sound, of words." Okay, so just remember, this is Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur's own definition of the Gaudiya Math. One more time. In a world which is filled with the Agya Ruddhi Vritti of words, the Gaudiya Math is the sacred place of the descent of the Vidvad Ruddhi Vritti of words. So, now you know the definition. But the question comes, what is Agyurudhibriti and what is Vidvadrudhibriti? Necessary to know. So, every word is in Sanskrit is called pada, is a word. And every pada has artha, a meaning. And the power by which a word expresses its meaning is called vritti. The vritti. That is the power by which a word expresses its meaning. So, in the history of India, there was a great debate among all the scholars of various schools. And in this lecture, Gaudiya-Darshana, I will not go into the details today. I have done that on other lectures in Alachua or in New York and Mexico, so you can see those classes. But just in essence, in the Nyay, in the tradition of Nyay, the tradition of Vaisheshik philosophy, in the tradition of yoga, Patanjali, the grammarians headed by Panini. Patanjali also follows in the footsteps of Panini. Among the followers of the Sankhya philosophy of Kapil Rishi, among the school of Karmakanda of Jaimini Rishi, they all have different or also sometimes related theories of how when you hear a sound, a meaning becomes manifest in your consciousness. It's very fascinating, and it's something that we take for granted because we go here and there, we talk all the time and we understand what we're saying, we think. So it's something that's right there in our lives all the time that we take for granted. But when you philosophically analyze this, how does the sense of meaning come from this A, B, C, D, E? How does it take place? It's very mysterious. And we see in the life of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he went to Gaya to offer pinda for his father, Jagannath Mishra, who had become aprakat, who had become unmanifest from this world. There he met Srila Ishvara Puripada and he received Diksha. Now, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur said, real Diksha, Vidvadrudi Diksha, means Karna Bhed Sanskar, the ear-piercing ceremony. In Vedic culture, there are many different ceremonies like Nabhichedan, cutting of the umbilical cord, first grains, Anaprashnan, and Mundan, first shaving of the head, writing the first letter to go to school. There are many samskars that the children have to go through, and the adults as well, and after you die, there's another sanskar as well. So, and before we born, Garbhadan sanskar. So there are 10 main sanskars, rituals that have to be performed for a pure life. So one samskar is called Karna Bhed Sanskar, the ear-piercing ceremony. And this is a metaphor for Diksha, initiation. Initiation, real initiation, is the time when the Shabda Brahma, transcendental sound from the lips of Sri Guru, pierces the ear, the material covering of the ear of the disciple, and then that sound manifests its spot dharma. Spot means bursting. The sound bursts into the purified consciousness of the disciple as being Shabda is Shabdi. The sound and that to which the sound is referring to is the same thing. Shabda is Shabdi. Nama is Nami. Abhinatvam Nama Namino in the Puranas. The name and the named are non-different. So when the Shabda Brahma, from the lips of Guru, from his heart actually, then to the lips, and then does the Karna Bhed Sanskar, pierces the mature covering of the ear, then the sound manifests its spot dharma. And the disciple sees what Guru is seeing as he's speaking. So it's like a transmission. From the TV studio into the screen in your home. Like that. Live broadcast goes there of Krishna Lila. So that vritti of the word, in which the word and the object signified by the word are absolutely non-different, that is called Vidvadrudi vritti. So when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to Gaya, he received Diksha from his Guru and he began to chant, and he was realizing the mantra And he became mad. And when he came back to Navadvip Dham, and it was time to teach Sanskrit in his school, then he could not teach. Because for him, now, every sound was... Don't go around, please. Because they have ekagrata and you'll break their ekagrata. One-pointed listen. In the end of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says to Arjuna, did you hear with ekagrata chitta, with one-pointed attention? And is your moha, has your illusion been removed? It's the same thing. To hear with one-pointed attention means to realize the truth. And to realize the truth is the only way to remove the moha, bewilderment. So this principle is there even in Bhagavad Gita. Vidvat ruti britti. The actual non-dual experience of the power of Shabda Brahma. Now, once the ear is pierced, now actually all sounds reveal the truth. And one experiences that all words are actually names of God. So that is the conclusion of Vedanta. Vedanta says, chara charo vyapasaras tusyat tad vyapasesho bhaktas tad bhava bhavitvat. Because the Supreme Lord is the self-existent foundation of all moving and non-moving living entities. Therefore, every word primarily denotes God and only secondarily denotes the object as it is conceived in conventional life. And this will be realized when one is mature in his practice. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's own life of initiation and then coming back, and he's trying to teach Sanskrit, but he's explaining that every letter, every word, every conjugation, every declension actually refers to Krishna. This is actually, his life is the direct graphic illustration of Vedanta, the conclusion of Vedanta. It's very profound. So this is the stage we must come in. So this is why Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakura said that all sounds reveal the truth to one whose mature ear, the covering of the ear has been pierced. And all sounds reveal their illusory face. Even the sounds of the scripture reveal an illusory face to those who have not received the Shabda Brahma. So how do you receive the Shabda Brahma? Tadviti pranipatena pariprashnena seva upadeksanti te jnanam jnanastattva-darshana. So Prabhupada, he explains the deep meaning of this verse. All of our thoughts, all of our feelings, they're also called vritti. Here vritti means the movement of pran in our subtle body. They're called chitta vrittis. Now, when we have no other vritti except for pranipat vritti, pariprashna vritti and seva vritti. This is the meaning of the verse. Tadvidi pranipatena. When in our consciousness we have no other feeling but to live in a state of constant prostration before Gurudev and our parampara. When we have no other vritti in our consciousness but pariprashna, the inquiring spirit, atato brahma jigyasa. What is our sadhana? All of our sadhana is nothing but, inquiring into the absolute truth. Krishna, where are you? Kaha mora pranonato murali badan. Where is that beautiful boy who plays upon his flute? This is our inquiry, our sadhana. So when there is pranipat vritti, when there is the pariprashna vritti, inquiry of the truth, and seva vritti, only let me serve in such a way that my Gurudev and Guru Parampara will be pleased and satisfied, without any personal consideration. Niskapat niswat seva, without selfishness and without duplicity. So when these are there in the mind, then the Shabda Brahma can pierce the ear and go into the heart and manifest its actual nature, the Spot Dharma. Otherwise, if one has not adopted that appropriate posture of reception for spiritual knowledge, then when the Shabda Brahma comes, it becomes intercepted. That is called Maya Vyavadan. There is obstacle of Maya. And instead of receiving spiritual knowledge, we receive bits of information. And then we leave the class and say, I learned so many things today. I learned this bit of information and that bit of information. That was a very informative class. Thank you, Prabhu Maharaj, for all the information. Right? But that is not hearing Harikatha. Hearing Harikatha is experience. What the speaker is experiencing, what he's realized, it's a transmission of that realization. That is actual Sravan, that is actual Kirtan, that is actual Smaran. So this is some examples why we began by discussing how the Kanishta Adhikari doesn't understand Bhakti Tattva. Because that realization or understanding is not there, that there is the three things come at the same time for those who practice bhakti. And that hearing is darshan, chanting is darshan, remembering is darshan. This is why this book is called Gaudiya-Darshana. It's on the subject of darshan. I want to mention, in the back of the book, I've written a commentary called Sarasvati Toshini commentary. The commentary to satisfy, to please Prabhupada Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakura. And you may find, if you just go to page 119 and read the commentary first, and then go back and read Prabhupada's lecture, it will be much more clear to you. Otherwise, you can just start at the beginning, and you may find it challenging. Actually, my Gurudev, in the introduction to the Hindi version, he said, Srila Prabhupada's, the beginning of his lecture is quite technically challenging, as he says, as he's churning the subject of sport and the various analysis of sound from the perspective of all the different, classical philosophies of India. But then after that, he said, then the lecture, it seems as if a person is indiscriminately and without hesitation just distributing jewels from the storehouse of his own bhajan. So it goes like that, but you have to, may have to struggle a little bit for the first few pages. So, but it will be very helpful if you read the commentary first and then come back to it. It will be much more easy to understand. So now we're discussing the Gaudiya Mat is what? The sacred place of the descent of Vidvat Ruddhi Briti. So the meaning is this, that the Vidvat Ruddhi Briti, or meaning of words, is, it reveals Advai Gyan. You know, in Shastra it is said in Bhagavatam in the beginning, Vadanti tat tatva vidas tattvam yad jnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti shabdate. That the supreme truth is known as Brahman, Paramatma Bhagavan, and that truth is Advaya Gyan Tattva. Advaya means indivisible, akanda, non-dual. It is not part of this divisible experience of time and space even. So as long as our consciousness is connected to the divisible experience of time and space, we cannot even conceive of what Krishna is. And if we are conceiving of what Krishna is in that consciousness, then that concept of Krishna is Prakrit, and is actually not Krishna. In fact, Prabhupada once said in one Qatar, he said, those persons who are going and saying, oh God, give me this, give me that, please, my child is dying from a disease, and then the child dies and they reject Krishna. He said they were never worshipping Krishna, they were worshipping Satan. They were worshipping Maya. So the actual reality of Krishna is something which is Advaya Gyan Tattva, non-dual conscious reality. And it cannot be touched by the material mind or words. Atashi Krishna Namadi Na Bhavat Grayam Indriyai. What does it mean? It's not just a slogan. It means something. So, in our worldly life, when we want to learn about a subject, because all the subjects that we want to learn about, they're kanda, they're dvaita, in the realm of duality, and they're divisible, so we can collect the parts of the knowledge and make a construct. We can construct an edifice of a conception of what the subject is by learning about it in pieces. So Prabhupada calls this the piecemeal process of accumulation, or we can call it the Kram Purvak Vikasita Gyan. Kram Purvak Vikasita Gyan. The knowledge which develops by the gradual accumulation of details, data, and information. But because God is an Advaya-tattva, a non-dual reality, we cannot learn about God by that method. You can't pull off a piece of God and then get another piece of Him later. That reality is a purna, it's complete and indivisible. And so the problem is, because we're used to having a mature education and studying mature subjects, when we approach bhakti, then we bring our impressions of what it means to learn a subject or be educated into the realm of bhakti. But as long as we do that, then we're not actually understanding the tattva, Krishna tattva or bhakti tattva or anything. So if we cannot learn about this truth by the piecemeal process of accumulation, then how can it be learned? And the answer is Shabda Brahma. It is only known when the disciples, all his brittis are in prostration and inquiry and service. Then by submissive hearing, there is the spot dharma, or the bursting nature of transcendental sound, which gives the purna gyan, a complete knowledge at once. Also there are degrees of that. And Krishna is indivisible. So Krishna, the form of Krishna will come at once. But then gradually greater and greater clarity comes. But you cannot divide Krishna into any parts. So the spoke dharma of sound will come there, and one realizes Roop, then Gun. Krishna cannot actually be separated from his Gun and his Parakars and everything. But depending on the degree of Shuddhata of the Chitta, the degree of Shuddhata of the Chitta, then the Chitta can only accommodate so much. So the more the heart is pure, the more there's the clarity of, the spot is coming. But the clarity and the details are not there. So slowly, the clarity and the details come. So Mahaprabhu says, Chaito Darpana Marjanam, clean. Make the Chitta clean, and gradually the realization of Sri Krishna will unfold there. So, now, the Vidvat Vruddhi Vritti of words means that sound which reveals Advaya Gyan, non-dual knowledge. Prabhupada said, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Kirtaniya Sadahari, may everyone do kirtan always, continuously. He never meant to cover the whole world with a sound vibration that would obscure the truth. He was speaking about the Shuddhanam, the pure name. One should chant continuously and thereby continuously have darshan of Krishna. So Kirtaniya Sadahari has been expressed in the Rig Veda. Om Tad Vishnahu Paramam Padam Sada Pasyanti Surayaha. The rishis always see, just as the sun is shining above your head and you can see the sun shining in the same way, the rishis constantly behold the beautiful form of the Supreme Lord. So that mantra of the Vedas and this mantra of Mahaprabhu, Kirtaniya Sadahari, is saying the same thing. Understand what Kirtaniya Sadahari means. So Prabhupada explains that once the disciple receives the spurti of Sri Krishna through the Shabda Brahma from Guru, then his only duty is to continuously behold that. Om Tad Vishnaho Paramam Padam Sada Pasyanti Suraya. Sada Pasyanti means to continuously behold. And that's why Mahaprabhu said Kirtaniya Sadahari. Now that disciple has made a success of his shishyatva, his disciplehood has become successful. Then the disciple has to demonstrate the success of his shishyatva by causing that spurti to appear in the hearts of others. And that is called the prachar seva. Understand what prachar means? So, the disciple demonstrates the success of his shishyatva by sada pasyanti suraiha, constantly witnessing Sri Krishna through kirtan and harikatha and going everywhere, and then causing that realization in the hearts of the listeners. Bringing. At first they will not understand anything, But because Krishna is attractive and in the heart of the Vaishnava, so the living entities will be gradually attracted, and then slowly they'll understand Siddhanta and surrender, and then the karna bait sanskar will take place, the ear will be pierced. So that is real Diksha, right? So my Gurudev, he used to speak about Vidvat Rudhi Diksha. Diksha in the Vidvat Rudhi sense, in the true sense of the term. Not just a haircut and putting a banana in the fire and the ceremony, changing your name. Okay, these are parts of the sanskar. But real Diksha is the ear-piercing ceremony. So now, is it clear to everyone what the Vidvat Ruddhi Vritti of words means? Yes. So then the next level is called Sadharan Ruddhi Vritti. Sadharan Ruddhi Vritti means the power of words which causes the material intelligence to concentrate on material objects as they are conceived in conventional dealings. So generally when people are speaking, when we hear it, that what we're hearing focuses our consciousness, our material intelligence on whatever subject they're speaking about. But it's within the Trilok, within the three worlds, within this Prakrit world. That is called Sadharan Ruddhi Vritti. And the scholars, they may be very intelligent, they may be very educated, and they study the Shastra, and they speak in terms of that Sadharan Ruddhi Vritti and understand it in that way. But that is still Maya. This is why Prabhupada Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakura, he used to say that when a pure devotee speaks, even if he misquotes the verse, you can see sometimes some great devotees, they'll quote a verse, but they may transpose a line from another verse into it or something, because some verses are similar. So let's say a pure devotee is speaking, and he says the verse incorrectly, but he's still correct. Why? Because he's still transmitting the perfect realization, which is correct. And the non-devotee, or the person who doesn't have realization, even if he speaks the verse perfectly and gives the chapter number and the verse number and the page number and the ISBN number, but he's still wrong. He's still wrong because he understands it according to Sadharan Ruddhi Vritti, and he will also impart that at the most to others. So then the next level of the power of transmission of sound is called the Agya Ruddhi Vritti. In Agya Ruddhi Vritti, there is a further contraction of meaning from the Sadharan Ruddhi Vritti, and it produces the customs of people of this world who are in tamas and rajas. So their idea of the soul, their idea of God, their idea of religion is like, it's even a contracted version of the Sadharan Ruddhi Vritti. So that is called Agya Ruddhi Vritti. So now we have the vocabulary, we'll come back to Srila Prabhupada's definition. What is the Gaudiya Mat? The Gaudiya Mat is in a world which is filled with the Agya Ruddhi Vritti of words, the sacred place of the descent of the Vidvat Ruddhi Vritti of words is called the Gaudiya Mat. Very, very beautiful, very beautiful. So, actually, in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srila Krishna Kaviraj Goswami, he says, Alokika Lila Prabhur, Alokika Riti, Shunileya Bhagyahi Nahaya Pratiti. The meaning is, the Leela of the Supreme Lord is alokik. It's beyond this world, supernatural. Alokika Riti, and the way of behavior, the Braja Riti, the methods of behavior and communicating of especially the Brijabasis, is also alokik, transcendental, supernatural. It's not something that we can conceive of. Suni leya bhagyahin naha pratiti. And if someone is bhagyahin, they don't have great fortune, then when they hear it, then naha pratiti, they don't experience it. In other words, a person who is bhagyavan, who is fortunate, who is surrendered and has served Guru and Vaishnavas, when they hear the alokik lila and the alokik riti, the katar of the spiritual world, then when they hear pratiti, Pratiti means experience. Jyotiti pratiti. Pratita. Jyotiti pratita means an immediate experience there and then along with hearing. That is actual Sravan. That is actual Kirtan, actual Smaran. So this is one of the main topics which I discussed in Gaudiya-Darshana in much more detail and with many examples. I want to touch on one or two other interesting, fascinating topics. We've been speaking on this book, giving one or two classes in all the different places on the tour. So in each place, I just pick out a few of those jewels that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakura is distributing. Some different ones every time. So today, Srila Prabhupada says that the general people of the world, they're of the Adhyakshik Sampradaya. Adhyakshik means empirical. Their interest, their knowledge is only whatever they can acquire through the senses. And by this, they have come to the idea of evolution. that from the fish, then that is gradually became land mammals and then became monkeys and human beings, whatever. This is the conclusion they came to. But their knowledge is very, very insignificant. And he quotes the Isaac Newton, who said, "Oh, people think that I am a very learned person, but I know that I have not even touched one drop of the ocean of knowledge. I am just like a boy playing on the shore of the ocean of knowledge, picking up a few broken stones." So Isaac Newton at the time, who was considered to be the peak intellectual of the Enlightenment period, he said, this is not true. So, but Galileo was much more aggressive and arrogant. So Prabhupada used to quote Galileo. Galileo said, you should measure what is measurable. And what you cannot measure, you should make it measurable. So Prabhupada used to say, Niyate anaya iti maya. The means by which we measure, that is maya. To think that we are the seers of reality, that we can understand, that we can measure also means to enjoy. The Gaudiya-Darshana. I will measure this food. How tasty is it? How salty is it? How crunchy is it? With our senses, we're trying to measure. And it means to enjoy. So that by which we're always measuring and trying to enjoy by our own power, arohavad, the ascending process. This is the very nature of Maya. And so, receiving transcendental knowledge through Shabda Brahma is the only method of attaining knowledge which is not arohapanta, an ascending process. One is completely dependent on the descent. So it's avarohapanta only. So Srila Prabhupada said, oh, they have come up with this idea of evolution. But in our Vedic tradition, transcendental, the Vidvat Sampradaya, in the Vidvat Sampradaya, we know that the avatars of the Supreme Lord, they are presenting the teaching of the evolution of human consciousness. So it's not that the fish becomes a human being, but the soul who is in the body of a fish, like the form of Matsya Avatar, right? Matsya Avatar represents the soul in a very preliminary stage of consciousness. Then Matsya, then Kurma. He is half in the ocean and half on the land. Then Varaha, he's on the land. Then Nishinga, half animal, half human. Then Vaman, human but not full human, he's a dwarf. Then Parashuram, fully human but barbarian. Then Lord Ram, fully human but civilized, but under the control of Dharma, Maryada. Then Balaram. Balaram has the Nirankush Swechhamayat. He is free to do as he likes. He's beyond the rules and regulations of Shastra. So a human being can also go, become Negranta Apyarukrame, beyond. Then Buddha. Buddha is the very highly sagacious stage of development. And then Kalki is destruction. That means that material existence is completely destroyed, and then you become, that is the Nirodha. There are 4 types of pralay, and one type of pralay is not the destruction of the universe, but it's the destruction of your material existence. So these are the stages of evolution of the individual. Now, in this world, there is a reflection of the puja to the various avatars. So these incarnations, they're nayakas, they're heroes, and they're worshipped by transcendentalists. But that is found here in this world, and that is called Jad-nayak puja. The worship of the Jad-nayak, the inert material hero. And this arises from impersonalism. When one thinks that God is not a person, then because it's this world is the reflection of the spiritual nature, if you think that God is not a person, then anyway you will end up doing puja to a hero. Hero worship. You can't get out of it. No one can get out of it. You see, even the Jains who are impersonalists, they worship the jinns. The Buddhists, they're completely impersonalists. They have statues of Buddha everywhere. Right? The materialists, they're worshipping film stars, rock stars, sports people. You can't avoid it. If anyone is into whatever literature, they're like worshipping Shakespeare. If anyone is into whatever politics, they have a statue of whatever, George Washington in their living room. They're into music, they have a statue of Beethoven or something. Like, no one can avoid it. This tendency, Nayak Puja, hero worship, is just, you'll do it anyway. So, the teaching of the Gaudiyas is, we don't worship any Jad Nayak, any material Nayak who is bound by karma. And this is why, even though in let us say, in Varnashram Dharma, there is some concession is given for the persons in the lower stage to worship their ancestors, Pitri Puja, to worship demigods. But the ancestors and the demigods, they're also bound by karma. These are also the forms of Jad Prakriti as well, material nature. So one will have to worship some hero. So a wise person will not worship the Jad Prakriti, the forms which are conditioned by time and space and which are bound by karma. If the object of your worship is bound by karma, what effect will it have on you? No. So the object of worship, one can worship the incarnations of the Supreme Lord, of which Sri Krishna is supreme. Now, why is Krishna supreme? Srila Prabhupada is discussing some very interesting terms. Vilas, Virag, and Chit Vilas. I'm so happy this 150th anniversary of Srila Prabhupada has come, because it's a chance for everyone. Let's return to the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada and open our hearts to his Vani. Because everyone heard the stories how he appeared with his Brahmin thread around his neck and all these different pastimes. But his Vani is most important. Of course, his general pastimes, they're also valuable. And we revere them. But without the Vani, we'd never understand the speciality of his contribution. So here, Srila Prabhupada is discussing the word Vilas. What does Vilas mean? Vilas means Indriya Chalana. Chalana means to drive or to ride, and Indriya means the senses. So, there are 2 types of thing, Jad Vilas and Chit Vilas. Material Vilas and spiritual Vilas. Now, the general person in this world, he's trying to do the Jad Vilas, the Jad Indriya Chalana, joy riding the senses. You know? Joy riding has a special meaning these days. Mhm. Like when there's a teenager who's a little bit wild and he finds a car that's not locked, and then he steals the car and jumps in it with a few of his friends and then starts racing it around town. And then what happens? Woo, woo, woo. And then some police come, and then there's a chase, and then usually there's a big smash. So this is how joyriding happens. So in this world, this is more or less what all the living entities are doing. Why? Yantra Rodani Mayaya. The living entities are as if seated on a machine made of the material entity. So the soul, who was in these lower species, right, didn't even have opposing thumbs or anything, now gets the human form of life. Woo! It's like a Lamborghini, right? You can do, there's so many things you can do. It's the top of the range model of bodies. Now the soul gets this human body. What will I do? Whatever. I'll go to the 3D cinema. Go to the rock concert with the nightclub with the lasers flashing. I get myself a huge LCD TV. Drinking. Trying to enjoy in all different ways. So this is the soul has taken this body and he's doing indriya chalana, joyriding the senses. He thinks this is what life is for, right? Isn't that what life is all about? Indriya chalana, vilas. But this, just like joyriding, usually ends with a crash. So this jad vilas always ends with a crash. It ends with misery. And it's actually the indriya chalana or jadavilas is the cause of the threefold miseries. If we were not engaged in the indriya chalana, we would not be affected by threefold miseries. Now, therefore, because a person who doesn't engage in the jadvilas or indriya chalana isn't affected in the threefold miseries, if a person doesn't do the indriya chalana, then that is called virag, detachment. And because persons who are somewhat mature realize, oh, this person is very intelligent, he's not doing this indriya chalana. So virag or detachment is revered in a religious or moral society. Right? Not today, in the West so much, but in a religious or moral society, detachment is very much respected. Especially if someone is a sannyasi or renunciate, everyone gives respect. Because they gave up the indriya chalana. Now, Krishna also does indriya chalana, but it's a chidvilas, transcendental joyriding of the senses. It cannot be compared to the jadvilas. Why? Because the material senses are atoms. They're material atoms whose influence is spread throughout the body by prana. And the body is destructible self. It self-destructs. It implodes by this indriya chalana. But for Sri Krishna, his senses are not limited by time and space. His senses are not jad, they're not material. They don't even move in material space. They move in his completely unrestricted spiritual space. And all of his activities are just to give joy to his devotees. Mad bhaktanam vinodatam karomi vivida kriya. All the vivida kriya, all the varieties of activities I perform, it is just to give pleasure to my devotees. And especially to Shima. Everything Krishna does is for the happiness of Radhika. So, the Chidvilas of Sri Krishna is eternal, free, beautiful, and it cannot be touched by tapatrai, the threefold miseries. It is a pure, unadulterated spiritual joy for him and for all the living entities in the spiritual world. And therefore Krishna's Chidvilas is a worshipful and glorious and should not be constricted. We should not think of constricting Krishna's Chidvilas in any way. So that leads us to the discussion. Prabhupada brings up the discussion of the jurisdiction of morality. The living entities in this world who are in ignorance, who falsely conceive of themselves as being the enjoyers. They have so many weaknesses which cause pain to them in the form of lust and anger and greed. In order to curb the weaknesses of those ignorant living entities, the rules of dharma or morality are there. That's what they are for. But in the realm where there are no threefold miseries, where there is no limitation of matter, and where every activity is one of pure love, there is no necessity. The jurisdiction of Dharma is for weak and ignorant conditioned souls. The jurisdiction of Dharma, it cannot even touch that divine realm of Goloka Vrindavan. It is not allowed any entrance there. And therefore, see Krishna, Svechamayata, as he likes, he is dancing and singing and embracing and meeting very intimately with all Braj Gopis. Nirankush, without no control. That's why it says Krishna is like a matahasti, intoxicated elephant. If an intoxicated elephant runs into the room now, who can control him? What will you do? Nothing. So in the same way, Vrindavane viharatu hi akeli kunje mattadvipa prabhara kautuka vibramena sandarshayasya yuvayo vadanaravinda dvandram videhi maidehi kripam prasiddha. Rupa Goswami said, "O Radhika, O Krishna, when you meet together in the Nikunjas of Vrindavan and you enjoy together like intoxicated elephants, or when will you be merciful and give me that vision?" This is Gaudiya-Darshana. There's so many definitions of Gaudiya-Darshana. It has to work the way up, gradually. So Prabhupada said, if the person feels that hesitation or wants to interrupt or limit in any way, oh God, no, God could never have such pastimes, then this is the mark of atheism and antagonism to God. Because Krishna is Leela Purushottam. He is Supreme Lord of the highest unlimited pastimes, Ananta Leela. So, Srila Prabhupada describes that in the impersonal conception, or the material conception, which is also impersonal because matter is impersonal, it's not conscious. So the nirvishesh or shunyavad, or material conception, it comes about by the gradual accumulation of offenses. So how does that take place, that gradual accumulation of offenses? First of all, the person, due to some matsarya, some enviousness, he cannot tolerate that Krishna can have such unfettered and unlimited enjoyment, but he cannot. And so he's, I'll not worship Radha and Krishna. I'll worship Lord Ram. Because Lord Ram is very strict and follows all rules and regulations of society. He is Maryada Purushottam. So I'll worship not Radha Krishna, but I'll worship Sita Ram because they are very dharmic. But then the person sees, oh, when Sita was stolen by Ravan, Lord Ram is crying. Why is he crying? God is omniscient. He knows everything. He's omnipresent. He's everywhere. How can he not know where his wife is? And wherever his wife is, he should also be there because he's omnipresent. He said, this Ram, he's human. And so then the person makes the offense. So Ram is, I'm not worshipping Radha Krishna now, I'm not worshipping Sita Ram. I worship Lakshmi Narayan. Because Lord Narayan has 4 arms, he's not human. He's God, he's powerful, he rides on Garuda. He never loses his wife and starts crying. He never dances with somebody else's wife. I like Lakshmi Narayan. So then he worships his Lakshmi Narayan. But then, when a person's faith in Lakshmi Narayan becomes weak, then, oh, I worship God. Oh, God doesn't need a girlfriend. He's Atmaram. Right? God is self-satisfied. He doesn't need any female associate to massage his feet or anything. So then comes the concept of Vasudev. Or like not just, that is like the yogis meditating only on the form of Vasudev in the heart, no one else is there. He's not doing anything, no pastimes, no associates. So then After some time, his faith in Vasudev becomes weak due to offenses. And then from Vasudev, he abstracts just the consciousness aspect. Vasudev means consciousness. And he abstracts only the consciousness aspect and comes to the concept of Chinmatra. Chinmatravad. Chinmatravad, the theory of the Supreme Truth, is just awareness. Right? And now it becomes impersonalism. And because impersonalism isn't even interesting, then gradually the person just gets completely in material life. And so, this is we spoke about the evolution of consciousness, now we're speaking about the devolution of consciousness. So in both directions, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur is showing how the peak of theism, the pinnacle of all development, is the Gaudiya-Darshana, that is the darshan of the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. So we've spoken so much philosophy. Now just to complete our discussion for today. Oh, I just want to check, did everyone get the book? Yeah, you all got, who didn't get it? Okay, so there are a few copies left, so. It's very, very fascinating, very fascinating. You can just read just a few words and become lost in that for days. It's so profound. The Katara of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur is so profound. So, the reason Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur is presenting all these philosophical ideas is to cut our illusion and bring us to his own internal platform. His own internal platform. You know that when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur, he did Brajmandal Parikrama, when the Parikrama party came to Govardhan, where did they stay? Radhakund. But Radhakund has so many sides. On which side did they stay? Actually, on the bank of Lalitakund. Because if you do the Parikrama, Radhakund and Shyamakund Parikrama, then as you go around Radhakund past the Sangam and you're coming towards Shyamakund, if you make a left there, then you can go, and there is the Bhajan Kutir of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur and Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Have you been there? Yeah? Have you been? Has anyone been there? Ah, yeah. So, you know. So the question is, well, why is his place of bhajan there? Because as you go around Shyamakund, there's a connection, and then there's Lalitakund, and the one side of Lalitakund comes up behind the bhajan kutir there. So the reason Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur did his bhajan there is because he internally, and he also expressed to others, that the greatest fortune is what? Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has written, Kapura Seva Lalitara Gana Radha Yuteshwari Mameshwari Nata Shri Nanda Nandana Amara Paranadam. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying, my service is the preparing karpur for Radha and Krishna. And I am serving Lalitara Gan, in the Gan of Lalita Sakhi. Actually, Lalita Vishaka and others, or to speak of them, even Rupa Manjari, they are so qualified they could be Yuteshwaris. You know, Chandravali, Shamla and others, they're Yuteshwaris, they're the leaders of their own group. So all the Sakhis, and even the Manjaris of Radhika, among the Brajagopis, they are so qualified, they could actually be Yuteshwaris and have their own groups. But seeing the beauty, the glories of the love of Srimati Radhika, they all want to serve her. Even her Sakhis, Lalita, want to serve her, and Manjaris, they want to serve her through serving the Sakhis. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave this teaching. Na hambi pro na cha narapati na pivaisha na sudro na hambani na cha griyapati no vanasto yativa kintu pradyan nikila paramananda purnam ritabde gopi batu patikamayo Dasa das anudasaha. Everyone should know, you have to say it before you remember Gayatri. It's a Bhutshuddhi mantra. So, Mahaprabhu said, I'm not brahmachari, grihastha, vanaprastha, or sannyasi, I'm not a brahmin, kshatriya, vaishya, shudra. I don't identify with any of these things. But there is one very beautiful ocean of nectarine and effulgent rasa named Gopinath. And I am the das, anudas, the servant of that Gopinath. Das, anudas, Gopiba to Patikamalayo, das, anudas are 3 times, das. So that means Radhika is serving Krishna. Das, first. Second das, Lalita is serving Radhika. Third das, Rupa Manjari is serving Lalita. This is the meaning of this verse, actually. So because Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur, he is the incarnation of Naina Mani Manjari, and especially promoting the glories of Lalita Gan, because Lalita is Pragalbha, very bold, and Radhika's very closest and dearest friend. So this is why his bhajan kutir is on the bank of Lalita Kund. There. Radha Yutashrihan. Radhika is my Yutashri, Mameshwari Nath. And the Nath, the Pranadan, the Lord of the life of my Ishwari, Radhika, is Sri Nandanandan. So it indicates, I have no inclination to a direct relationship with Krishna. My Ishwari is Radhika, and her beloved is Krishna. This is my connection. And Krishna, Nandanandan, Amar Paranadhan. Krishna is my Pranadhan. He is my life and soul, but he is the beloved of my Swamini, Radhika. Madishana Tatve Brajavipina Chandram Brajabani. So, Srila Prabhupada was quite guarded in regard to his internal moods. So he would speak so much Siddhanta, cutting Mayavad, cutting all the other Apasampradayas and so on. And the pure Katha of Srimad Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita, such as Sanatan Shiksha, by which we become established in Sambandha Gyan and gradually Abhideya and Prayojan. But sometimes he could not contain his inner ecstasy. And once there was one Katha, one Sabha, religious assembly was going on, and one devotee was speaking some Katha, and that devotee was describing the Rasa Leela of Srimad Bhagavatam. So that devotee, he described how when the Rasa Leela was going on, then Radhika saying, oh, this is not what I wanted. Krishna is dancing with all these gopis. She wasn't upset about that, because actually that's what she wanted. Why did Krishna perform the Rasa Leela? Because one day, Radhika said to Sri Krishna, Yat pratitam sopkutakena purana eva shaknosi kimnu kulajab dabalakshikoti alingitam priyatama shanameka manvi chaste didikshitam idam mamapura eva. Oh Krishna, in my heart suddenly a great curiosity has arisen. And I have a desire. Can you fulfill it? I want to see you. Oh, dancing and embracing Lakshakoti, millions and millions of Vrajagopis. This feeling came in Radhika's heart. Why? Because Radhika's feeling is only, how can Krishna be happy? So it was Radhika's idea, and when the opportune moment came, then the Rasa Leela took place. But in that Rasa Leela, each gopi became so bhagamat, tasam tat subhagamadam, bhikshamanam chakeshava, became so intoxicated with her own good fortune that though she was serving Krishna, loving Krishna, but she was so intoxicated with her own good fortune that she wasn't noticing what the other gopis were doing. So you can't have a group dance, right? We have some who's a dancer here? We have some dancers here tonight, I think. So you can't have a group dance without having one eye a little bit on what the other dancers are doing, right? So, because each gopi was absorbed in their pastime only with Krishna, not watching what the others are doing, then the Rasa Leela, the group dance, it's all spoiled. So Radhika became upset and she frowned her eyebrows. When Radhika frowned her eyebrows, then Krishna panicked and quickly took her by the hand and took her alone and disappeared from all the other Brajagopis. So then Krishna took Radhika deep into the forest and they enjoyed very beautiful pastimes in a kunj together. Afterwards, Radhika's hair became untied. Krishna tied up her hair in a knot on the top, like a cowherd boy. Because in the ecstasy of their love, they reversed roles, and Krishna thought, I am Radhika, and Radhika thought, I am Krishna. So because of this lila, Krishna tied up Radhika's hair like a boy on the top. Radhika hit him with a flower. You should untie it and make it properly, otherwise others will criticize me. So then Krishna untied the hair and combed her hair, decorated her with flowers. It was taking a long time. Krishna thought, oh, the others are searching for us. And if they will catch us, or they'll see us just two together, all the Brajagopis are going to blame Radhika. That, oh, look, this girl has taken Krishna away from all of us, and they'll criticize her. So Krishna thought, we should not be seen by them, we should go into the forest. So Krishna said, come, let's go. This is very beautiful and interesting over there, come. But Radhika, she said, Tato gatva vanuddesham dripta keshamam abarvit na parayam chalitum yatta nayamam yatta te manaha. Oh Krishna, I cannot move even one more step. She was very tired. And actually she wanted that her Sakhi should arrive, because she was feeling a little bad that she'd abandoned her Sakhis and was serving Krishna by herself. She thought, all my Sakhis, they've given their life to me. And what have I done? I'm a very bad character. I am alone with Krishna and they're suffering. So Radhika felt, no, the Sakhis should come and we shall serve Krishna together. So Radhika said, Na parayam chalitam. Na yamam yattatemana. I cannot take another step. You can carry me wherever you want. So then when Krishna saw this, then he thought, oh, she's become so submissive. That's not good. In the Madhurya Rasa, one can be submissive and one should be contrary. And then Rasa is there. If the two are submissive, then there will be no Rasa. So Krishna thought, if she's becoming submissive, then I have to become contrary. And also, if I'll disappear now, when the gopis arrive and find her, instead of criticizing her, they'll feel sympathy for her and put all the blame on me. So it was for Radhika's sake, out of love for Radhika, that Krishna suddenly disappeared. So then at that time when Krishna disappeared, Radhika called, Ha Nata Ramana Prashta Kwasi Mahabhuja Dasaste Kripanayame Sake Dasha Sannidhim. So this devotee spoke this verse in the assembly. Prabhupada Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur was there. And he spoke this verse of Radhika. Ha Nata Ramana Prashta Kwasi Mahabhuja. Every word, every name, every syllable of Srimad Bhagavatam is filled with an ocean of nectar. Radhika, Ha Nat. Nat means Prananath. You are the Lord of my pran. That means if you go, then my pran cannot stay. If you leave me, my pran will leave me. O Nath, O Krishna, I am burning in the fire of separation from you. And it's very, very difficult for me to hold on to my pran, even for another moment. It is if you will not return right now to save me, then I will leave. So you should return, but not for me. Should return for you. Why? Ha Nata Ramana. Now next, Ramana. Ramana means lover. You should return for you. Why? Krishna, leaving all other Braja Gopis, you took me alone into the forest because you wanted to have a very special loving experience that you cannot experience anywhere else with anyone else in this whole world. So you are my Ramana, and you are my lover, you took me alone. And so if I will leave, then you will never again find such joy with anyone else in the world, and you'll be suffering so much. So you must come back. Then by the Bhav Karna, the ears of Bhav, it was as if Radhika could hear Krishna say, but if you're going to die anyway, then what do you care about my suffering? You may care about someone suffering, but if you yourself die, then what? How will you know? Radhika said, no, Prashta. Ha nata Ramana Prashta. You are my Prashta, you are my most dear one. You are so dear to me that if you feel the slightest pain or inconvenience, I feel that like the bite of 1,000,000 scorpions. I feel your suffering millions of times more than you do. And you are so dear to me that even if I will pass away, but still I will feel even the slightest inconvenience to the tip of your toenail. In my next life, I will feel it. This is pranay. Pranay is the love which has such confidence that our hearts are one, cannot be separated. So, ha nata ramana prasta. Krishna said, but it's too late now. By the time I get there, you'll be dead. Radhika said, Kwasi, where are you? Where are you? Mahabhuja. With your strong arms, Mahabhuj means strong arms. The bhav is that, Krishna, don't worry. Even if I will pass away, your strong arms, the embrace of your strong arms is such amrita, such nectar, that by the touch of your embrace, I'll immediately come back to life. Krishna said that it may be. But one thing, look, I'm a prince. I'm the son of Nanda Maharaj. And I'm a very delicate boy. How could you be so arrogant as to tell me to carry you around here and there in the forest at night? Radhika said, Dasya stay kripanayame. Have mercy on your dasi. Have mercy on me, your maidservant. But why did you order me like that? Because I was so tired. And when I'm tired, I cannot think properly. And because you were combing my hair and decorating my hair like a friend, like an equal. Sake darshaya sandhidim. Oh, Sake. You treated me like a friend, so I became I spoke to you in a very friendly and familiar way. This is the reason. Then she heard Krishna say, all right, I'm coming. Darshaya sannidhi. Oh, show me, where are you? I am blinded by anxiety. And then Radhika fainted and fell to the ground, unconscious. So this devotee was telling this verse, Ha nata ramana presta kwasi mahabhuja dasyaste kripanayame sakke dashaya sannidhim. He was not explaining in detail like I have explained, but I wanted to say something. Why? Because Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta Thakura, being the dasi of Radhika, he cannot tolerate Radhika's separation. Sri Krishna virahi Radhikaro daso amito sahite nahare jugamala milan sukera karana jivana charite pari. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, absorbed in the mood of the dasi of Radhika, Palya dasi, he said, the condition of Radharani when she's in separation from Sri Krishna, I am unable to tolerate it. For the sake of the happiness of the couple, Jugal, and their Jugal Milan, their meeting, I am ready to give up my life hundreds of times. So because Srila Prabhupada was in this mood, when he heard this katha of Radhika's separation, and how she fainted, then Prabhupada, for him, it's not a theoretical thing or something from a book or history or even something religious. He was directly experiencing it. This is the meaning of Vidvat Ruddhibriti. The katha and the lila are not two things. He was direct and he could not tolerate it. And he said, stop. What kind of rasa is in this? Better you should say, itastatastam manusritya radikam ananga bana brana kinna manasa kritanutapa sakalinda nandini tatanta kunjeva sasada madhava. This is another pastime on another day, also Rasa Lila, but the opposite of that pastime. That pastime is from Srimad Bhagavatam, but this verse Prabhupada quoted is from Gita Govinda. Krishna was dancing in the Rasa Lila and the Radhika left Krishna. Not Krishna leaving Radhika. Radhika left Krishna and then Krishna was searching everywhere. Chalita bilukya vritam badu nichayena saparadhataya mayapi nabaritati bayena hari hari hatadarataya gatasa kupiteva mayam Chalita bilukya. Krishna is crying, Hari, Hari. That means, oh God. You see, in Krishna Lila, Krishna isn't God. You can think he's God, but in Krishna Lila, he's not God. Hari is God. Krishna is crying, Hari, Hari, what did I do? I made an offense to Radharani and now she's become angry with me. Kupiteva. She became angry and left. Where will I find her? What is she doing now? Chintayami tadananam kutilam brukopabarina shona padmam evopari pramatakulam pramarena. I wish I could see her face. Krishna was wondering. Prabhupada quotes this verse. Tatanta kunje vishasada madhava. Krishna wandered from kunj to kunj on the bank of Jamuna. He could not find Radharani, so he finally just sat down and he was crying to himself and thinking, I wish I could see her face right now. Because when she's angry, then her face becomes reddish. And she frowns her eyebrows like this, and her eyebrows are very long, like a row of bumblebees. And just like a row of bumblebees lands on a red lotus flower, it's like that, very beautiful. I wish I could see her angry face. Actually, she's more beautiful when her face is a little angry. That's why she tends to get angry quite often. This is her man seva to Krishna. And Krishna is crying. Chamyatam na param kadapi chavedasham na karomi dehi sundari darshanam mama manmatena dunomi. Oh Radhika, please forgive me. I promise I'll never behave like this again. Starting the Rasa Lila without you. Dehi Sundari Darshana, oh beautiful one, give me your darshan and save my life. Because I am suffering, because Cupid is shooting me with so many arrows. Only you can save me. So, Srila Prabhupada, by speaking this verse, Visasada Madhava, Madhav means the husband of the goddess of fortune, the most fortunate person himself, Vishasada, was depressed and feeling separation from Radhika. Because that the maidservants of Radhika, when they hear that Krishna is crying and feeling separation from Radhika, they feel very satisfied. Good. If he were to meet with someone else, they would be very upset. But that he is crying means that he's attached to my Swamini. And when they meet, the meeting will be very beautiful. So when Prabhupada heard Hanata Ramana Prashna, he said, stop. And then, oh, you should say this, Vishasada Madhava, like this. So in this way, his own intense mood of the Palyadasi Bhav, his own intense mood of Radha Dasyam was manifest. Those devotees are close to him. They could experience that. And this is why we pray to Srila Prabhupada. Sri Bhashabanabi Devi Daita Tapta Kripab Daye. He is the incarnation of the maidservant of Bhashabanabi Devi, Radhika. Kripabdaya, he is an ocean of mercy. Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Daine Prabhave Namaha. And by his tremendous influence, at that moment the devotees there, they were moved by the waves of his bhav. So by the prabhav, the influence of his ecstatic moves, Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Daine Prabhave Namaha, he was giving the Sambandha Vijnan, realization of our Nitya Sambandhas, Vishesh Sambandha, special relationship with Radha and Krishna. So this is why he's been glorified. Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Daine Prabhave Namaha. So he was quite guarded about confidential things, but from time to time his bhav would manifest, and he gave all these secrets in the hearts of his very near and dearest ones. Sharanagata kinkara kalpatarum tarudikrita dira vadanyavaram varadendra ganapita divya padam pranamami sada prabhupada padam. Sharanagata kinkara kalpatarum means for those persons who were surrendered to him, he is a kalpataru, a wish-fulfilling desire tree, and all their spiritual wishes were fulfilled by his mercy. Yeah. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Sri Gaudiya-Darshana ki jai, Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo. Hare Krishna.